Today's video is sponsored by Attain Insight Security 4X, the trusted solution to streamline, automate, and audit end-user security authorizations for Microsoft and Azure Active Directory. Visit them today at attaininsight.com. In this session, we're going to take a look at cross-tenant collaboration and synchronization, a brand new feature in Microsoft 365 and Entra ID. Stay tuned, you're gonna learn something. In today's episode, we're going to take a look at cross-tenant synchronization and collaboration. And this is an extension of Microsoft's kind of synchronization technologies that they've been rolling out over the past 12 months. So it kind of all started with kind of cross-tenant synchronization, shared channels in Microsoft Teams, and it's quite exciting to see where this is going to go. Now, on today's episode, I'm going to do a full demo, so make sure that you stick around to the end because there's some cool stuff coming that I guarantee you're not going to want to miss. Now, in terms of time coding, I'm going to code it in a way that if you feel that you've missed a bit or you'd like to jump forward, back and again, absolutely no problem. So all of that is set up for you. Now, if you want to show a little bit more appreciation, why not join my Patreon site? Patreon gives you access to not only extended versions of episodes like this, but also dedicated full training sessions at a very, very reasonable price. So check out my Patreon site just here. Now, if you have any comments and questions about this or any of my other videos, I love those and I welcome that feedback just below. And if you've not subscribed, then go ahead, bump that subscribe button up there, ring that bell, and you'll be notified of any new videos and postings. Okay, so I think without any further ado, let's jump in and have a look at cross-tenant collaboration and synchronization. So this is fantastic for multi-tenant organizations or organizations that, for example, are quite large and they maybe have different tenants in different areas of the world, and you want to collaborate on projects and so on. Well, until now, we've had tools like shared channels in Teams, and we've also had synchronization settings, but it's still been a little bit of work and it's had a few challenges. And I think that Microsoft might be on a real winner with this. So my scenario is here, I've got two tenants. So I've got a tenant called a datum, as you can see, and I've got another tenant here called Contoso. And I want to establish a cross-tenant synchronization, aka collaboration. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm taking my a datum and I'm going to copy the ID to the clipboard here. So my tenant ID. I'm then going to flip over into my other tenant here and I'm going to go into my settings. And in my settings, I'm going to open up here in Microsoft 365. I'm going to go into open my organization settings, clicking onto the organization tab, and in here I'm going to take a look at my multi-tenant collaboration settings, and this is currently in preview. Now there's a couple of places that you can configure this. You can configure this here in Microsoft 365 and also in the external configuration settings in Azure. So do I want to create a multi-tenant organization, or would you like to join one? So again, I suppose before we can join one, we really should think about creating one. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create my multi-tenant organization. So the first thing it's going to ask me is for an organization name, and then it's going to ask me for the actual organization. So I'm just taking my Contoso tenant here, so it's called Contoso. So I'm just going to call it Contoso. And this, again, is just a demo account that I'm using. I'm also going to add in the organization ID. So again, just the name of the organization here. And typically this can be anything that you want to bring in. So in this case, it asks me for my tenant. So what's the ID of my participating tenant here? So I'm just going to copy that across. And this is just your the tenant ID, of course, of your organization. So I'm just going to very quickly just flip across there. And you can see this is the organization that I want to bring across. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to paste that in. And you can see that it says, hey, is this the tenant that's going to be in here? So I'm going to say, yeah, that's fine. This is the tenant that I want to be a member, or I want to collaborate with at the very least. Now, please note here, you can also bring in multi-tenants there as well, so you can have multiple ones. So what do you want to do here? So do you want to allow users to sync into this tenant from the other tenant in this multi-tenant organization? And do you want to suppress the OAuth consent? I felt that they maybe should kind of specify that there. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to say yes, and I'm saying, right, I'm pretty good to go. You get a nice overview of everything there, and it just finishes the wizard off here. So you can see here, you've invited a multi-tenant organization, and you can see that we now have our invitation, and you can see that the invited tenant is a datum. So the owner tenant is Contoso, and the invited tenant is a datum corporation there. All right, so now what we do is we just simply click on done. And again, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip over there. And you might just want to give it a second just to kind of refresh and just obviously refresh the page here. And you can see that we've got the multi-tenant collaboration. It's in place. And again, you can see at the moment, nothing has synced in there, but it is a member. And this can just take a little bit of time just to kind of refresh. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip over here to Contoso. And again, let's just have a quick look. Now, you'll notice it says the status of pending there. Now, if I flip over into the a datum organization, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to again come into the settings page. I'm going to come into organizational settings. So in the organization settings, again, I'm just going to click onto the organization profile and then click on the multi-tenant collaboration. Now, again, I'm just going to join this time. So I've completed the setup in one location. Now I need to complete the setup in the other location. So enter the tenant ID of the organization that the owner has shared with me. So this is, of course, Contoso. And I'm going to say, again, allow my users to sync to this tenant in this multi-tenant organization. And again, suppress the OAuth prompt. That means it's not going to prompt the user every time, you know, for when you get guest access, for example. So it just takes a few moments just to come through again, and it just says you can then use the share users button. So a common question, Andy, does that mean that all my users are shared or just none? Well, by default, none are shared. So what you can then do, of course, is you can then go in and choose which users you indeed want to share. You can, of course, share them all. Okay, so here you can see that a datum has come through. Well, there's our connection, and you can see that we've got Contoso, which is my tenant. And again, you just get the status here. And you can see underneath, you've got the status for a datum as well. So you can see that it says not syncing at the moment. So nothing is syncing at the moment. And you can see that we have a couple of tabs. So a couple of configurations here. So you can see that we've not configured it at the moment. And it would also let you see how many, for example, shared users that you're sharing and inbound users that are coming in. Now, of course, you can create a inbound and outbound so that it's true multi-tenant, everybody shares one thing, or you can just have it where tenant A shares with tenant B, for example, if you want. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over to my other tenant. So here in a datum, so I'm in the a datum tenant here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of say, okay, do I want to share my resources with Contoso? So I can click into here and I can say, yep, I want to share users and groups, of course. Now, again, you could, I suppose, share everyone. You could create a group that shares everyone. But again, for better control, you might want to do this individually for security reasons, of course. So initially, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to share a couple of users here. Sorry, a couple of groups. So I've got a couple of groups here called Oslo. So I'm just going to add in Oslo IT. And I'm bringing in Oslo IT support as well. So I'm just going to click on save on that. And it says, yeah, you want to save the configuration. So that's absolutely fine by me. And I'll just let that process for a second. Okay, that looks good. Okay, fine. So progress is completed. So that's absolutely fine. And you can see that those groups have now successfully come in. And by the way, if you want to add more, change it, again, it's absolutely simple that you can do that. You saw there was a button in the dialog box there. You could click that, and you could also edit and share more users as well. So when you add something new, so for example, a new user, a new group, you'll notice that right away it forced a synchronization. So if I simply just switch tabs and come into a datum and go into the properties here, I'll click onto the configuration, and just as it refreshes, you'll see that I've got those groups have come through that I shared earlier, and I've also got Captain Kirk's account, and that has also successfully synchronized. So a datum, of course, is going to sync into Contoso. So knowing that, I'm just in the Entra ID portal here, and there's just a couple of little things I need to mention here. So I'm going to come down here into the external collaboration settings, and I'm sure that you're familiar with this, the fact that you can go into the organization and you can control the B2B settings. And this was introduced last year, of course, when we did shared channels in Microsoft Teams. But what I want to do is just point out one important thing. If I just scroll down, of course, we've got the inbound settings. We've also got the outbound settings. And you can see that I pretty much configured these already. Now, one thing that I haven't done is the tenant restrictions page. And you'll notice here that this is currently in preview. So at the moment, no users are allowed or applications for sharing. So one of the things you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to specify the allowed access. So you can see the tenant ID, the policy that you've created, and one of the things you're going to configure is both external users and groups and external applications. So I'm just going to go ahead, and of course I'm going to click on allow access and then save those changes. Now again, depending on if it's a two-way thing, you might also want to go to the partner one as well and configure that. The other little gotcha as well is just making sure, of course, that Captain Kirk is licensed. So I'm just going to flip over to the other tenant here. So again, just going back in, and I'm going to come back into my external collaboration settings. So once again, just come back into here. You click into the kind of default settings here, and you can see that you've got a datum. Just ignore that a datum, that's just a tenant thing for my demo here. But you can see essentially they're all configured. So once again, if I go into the configuration settings, scroll down, and again you've got that tenant restrictions here currently in preview. So you just want to click on that and just choose allow access. Now remember, I'm setting this up for all users and all applications. You don't need to, of course. You can just do it for specific users and specific applications, of course, if you want to. So again, I've just got Captain Kirk here again. So what I'm going to do is let's have a quick look at this user account. And one thing that I'm going to notice, by the way, is if I click into his licenses, he's not actually licensed. So this could also cause issues. So do make sure that you've got the appropriate licenses for the user here. So I'm just going to, let's say, I'll just give him these licenses. Yeah, that's fine. And excuse me, I'll just click on save that. So I've gone ahead. This user's been licensed now, and we're pretty much ready to go. So although the user synced earlier, because he wasn't licensed, and also because of those collaboration settings being disabled, meant that he couldn't actually be discovered. So now that we've discovered the user, what I want to do is I'm just going to go into his account, and let's just take and copy his address. So just wait for this to come in, and I'm just going to copy this. Yeah, just copy that across. Alrighty, so just close that down. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over to the other tenant. Okay, so and you'll notice there's no Captain Kirk in this tenant. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my teams and groups. So now we're thinking about, hey, right, what can we do with this other user from our sister company? So again, I'm just double checking my groups. So here we go. I'm just going to go into my teams and groups, and let's have a look. So in here, I have got a group. Let's just bring it in. So which one can it be? Let's go for this one. Yeah, we'll go in for Oslo HQ. So I'm going to go into Oslo HQ, and I'm going to go into the membership tab. And here in members, I'm going to click on add a member. And of course, we could bring in groups because we're already sharing the groups from previously. Now, remember, I'm only allowing those two groups at the moment. But as I start to type in James Kirk, look what happens, and notice the address. So it's bringing in the user tenant.onmicrosoft.com, but look, ext. So it's automatically bringing that user, and it's creating a dynamic guest account for the user. However, this is no ordinary guest account, no. So again, I can add in others as well, but that's fine just now. So this is no ordinary guest account because look, if I just flip into the users, just come in here. Now look, you'll notice that some of these users have started to sync in, but particularly James Kirk there, he's that guest, but you can see he's coming as a member. So even though he's a guest in the other tenant, he's actually coming as a member. How cool is that? And that, my friends, means I can now, of course, assign him to teams. And that means that when he signs in, there's going to be no prompts for things like OAuth, identity, or anything like that. Absolutely super cool and a fantastic feature. So the final thing that I just want to show you is I'm coming back into external identities, and if I just scroll down, we have something called obviously cross-tenant access settings. We've seen that before, and also the external collaboration settings. We have this new tab here. This is cross-tenant synchronization, and you can see here it says, hey, do you want to get started with a cross-tenant synchronization? So this sounds like a pretty cool tool. Now I've actually gone ahead and this is configured because I configured it in Microsoft 365, so we can actually see that we've got our connection here, and at any point you can also create it, you can delete it, and so on. So I'm going to go into the connection and let's have a look. And remember, this is me, I'm a datum, and I'm sharing with Contoso. So you can see that I've got a number of users, showed me that everything is complete, it's looking good. And you've got users and groups here. So again, there's our friend Captain Kirk, and then there's my two groups here. So again, you can manage this, as I said, in the Office portal, and you can also see this in the 365 portal as well. You also get like a provisioning log here as well. So it shows me in the provisioning mode. You can see that if you're using a cross-tenant synchronization, so by default, this is the default method at the moment. You can see that where it's going to, you can test that connection as well. And I can also go into the mappings and you can provision Azure Active Directory users, so yes. And again, I've got a settings tab here as well, and you've got some options here. So again, I can specify, do I want to send an email notification if an error happens? Again, I can go ahead and put the admin in there. I can prevent accidental deletion. So this is a really nice feature because this is a little bit like that Active Directory feature. Remember that old Active Directory when you created an organizational unit? This is really nice to see this coming in here actually. All right. And you can see the sync only assigned users and groups, but this is where you can switch it on for everybody. So if you want to go ahead and allow everybody and every group to sync, again, this is where the magic happens here. Now, so there we go. That's important. That's really cool. You can see the policies on as well. You've also got an expression builder, so if you want to build kind of dynamic rules, you can do that here. And you can create like flows. You've got the audit log here as well, so it shows you the provisioning, everything works, and likewise if there's any kind of issues, of course. You've also got the insights, so again I would need to switch on log analytics for that. I don't have that on at the moment. So there you have it. That is cross-tenant synchronization and also the multi-tenant collaboration features in the new Microsoft 365 and Entra ID. Hey, isn't that so cool? There we go. Cross-tenant synchronization and multi-tenant collaboration, all part of Microsoft Entra ID and Microsoft 365. That is so cool. Hey, listen, if you enjoyed the session, go ahead, bomb that subscribe button, ring the bell, and come and join my learning community. And if you enjoyed it, please bump the like button. It does make a difference. And I'd like to say a big thank you to our sponsor today, Attain Security 4X, for sponsoring this video. We really do appreciate it. All right, that's it for today. I'll see you next time. Thanks very much. Hey, thanks so much for dropping by today. Here's a couple of videos that you may enjoy, and while you're here, go ahead, click on the subscribe button and you won't miss out.